You're muted.
Hello. Good morning. How is everybody?
Good morning.
Thank you for hanging in there with me and being willing to move to Friday. This week has been a whirlwind as I've been working from out of town. Do you guys have any questions before we get started? Any concerns or questions about what you've been working on this week?
No, ma'am, I'm good. Good morning.
Good morning. Let's see. Note takers. Okay, so we'll wait a few minutes, see who joins us, and then we'll dive in. We have a handful of new agents who joined in the last week. So my plan is to go through the contract to close steps again with how it relates to what we do with as a Fortify team member, what our process is. But if the newer guys don't join us, we're not going to waste y'all's time going through that as detailed. But we'll see who joins us and go from there. So try to have an itinerary, but I also want it to be relevant to whoever's on. Since we have a few minutes, what are some topics that you guys would like more information on? Anybody have any thoughts of things that you would like to dive more into?
I mean, I think that everything you guys are doing at this point is along with where we are in our growth stages, like where I am anyway, as far as real estate. I feel like you guys have done a lot for us.
I don't know what that's about.
Huh? Can you hear me?
Hey, Justice. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. How is everyone?
Good morning.
Wow.
Can you hear me, Caitlin?
Yes. It was on my end. Forgive me. I didn't realize my earbuds were in here and they picked up. Gonna disconnect them. Sorry about that, Dee. Can you tell me again what it is?
No, I was saying like in line with where we are as far as like where I'm at in the stage I am in real estate. Like I feel like you guys are pretty much on top of things. I think the only thing I would like to see more of personally is like learning the documents, what they mean, why we do them, why we fill them out the way we do. Like I've been working on learning more of that, reading in our Google Drive for that. I think a class just learning how we can fill it out on our own to give us all the opportunity to understand what we're doing would be the only other thing that I would do. Probably. I wouldn't know if it was this stage, but
yeah, and we haven't gone through the actual contract documents in a while. So we can add that to our list.
That way, so like the new people know what they're looking at, what they're reading. So we kind of know, because Fortify has their own way of doing things than some realtors.
Yep.
I've noticed in the last conversation I've had this week, like how some realtors are like, oh, well, I don't do that, or we don't do this, and I'm just like, okay.
Well, and I will say, so KW requires a seller disclosure. Other brokerages don't. However, it's using that as an example. It's a CYA for us that we did everything we possibly could to get the seller to disclose the information that they were supposed to tell the buyer about the property. But yes, you will definitely come across other brokerages and realtors who are very relaxed with their timelines and the verbiage. they're very relaxed is the only way I can think to describe it at the moment. But we definitely try to take everything into consideration to make sure you guys are functioning at a high level to where you fully understand and are covered. We want you guys to be safe with all of your contracts that you are writing. So yeah, you'll see that a lot, that other brokerages don't have the same requirements that we do. And the seller property disclosure is a good example of that.
Yeah.
So let's get started. So Justice is our newest Fortify member to join us. So welcome. We have a couple of agents on here today. What I'm going to do is, because Justice hasn't seen it before, we're going to start where we always start with agent resources, and then we're going to pull up our contract to close info. Let's see. So Justice, you would have gotten this in your emails that I try to compile training information, marketing details, document examples that you guys can go back and reference as you're working on things. I hope you all will spend a lot of time in the working with buyers folder, as most of our incoming leads are buyer leads. And so most of the agents who are on with us today have seen this, but I like to pull up the contract to close buyer agent steps just to kind of help give me a guideline of talking points as we're working through the process. So does anyone have any questions on the scheduling, showing, initial part of working with the buyer? I think most of you have that down pat. Okay, so reminder as always that we have to have the touring agreements. This is required, and the thing that I hope all of you are starting to implement is make sure you're submitting your showing agreement, touring agreement document to admin through our Fortify Google form. So you'll find just about every list of steps or tasks I've created, you'll see those links to the Google Forms. One thing, I've had a lot of agents in the last week talk about or looking into new construction. So I want to mention, before we get too far off topic with our showing agreements, we're going to go into document examples, buyer showing agreements. So we all know the Zillow touring agreement sends that out on our behalf if you have that turned on, which we recommend you all doing initially. And then it sends it out on your behalf. If they don't sign it, we still, one way or the other, have to get a signed document before we unlock any doors for them to see. This is temporary though. So once you move beyond that and you've established a relationship with them, we recommend using the buyer broker agreement that looks like this. We recommend keeping it basic, because if you put single family home here as type of property, but then they end up looking at mobile homes, you're going to have to redo the document. If you put Winter Haven, but then they end up looking at Auburndale, you'd have to redo the document. So usually I put residential and Florida as our location. Now you may have some buyers who are picky and they want it to say Central Florida or Polk County, but just keep in mind you want to keep it as broad as possible. So this goes through our obligations and then their obligations to us. And then we put in here what we want to get paid and the KW 495 fee. I recommend doing these, giving yourself a 60-day protection period. As far as if we don't do our job, and that's exactly how I present that conversation, is I'm not going to charge you a retainer. I'm not going to charge you a termination fee. I don't expect you to want to fire me, but if I don't do my job, you certainly have the right to. And then it's simple. So you have, this is an example of, I have highlighted versions of just about anything you may need to fill out. So keep in mind the 3% $495. We all know that as a buyer's agent, it's really hard to get that 3% right now. So there's examples if it ends up being a combination of your seller contributing a portion and your buyer contributing a portion. You'll do a modification document and it looks like this. And you make it specific to the property address. We don't want to amend our entire buyer broker agreement because if for some reason this deal falls through, we don't want our buyer broker agreement to now say we're only capable of getting paid 2% or 2.5%, whatever it might be. So if we're doing a modification, if a specific deal commission changes, use the modification form and make it specific to the property address. Now, I brought this up because we've had a lot of agents looking at new construction. So you may end up having your typical buyer broker agreement. This is the safest. The one creating the strongest relationship, I should say, when I say safe, with your buyer. So you may have this, but then we know that a lot of new construction, what they offer in commissions varies. So one easy way to cover your new construction communities, excuse me, I'm going to need my water in a minute, is Sam and I do this a lot where we'll have our regular EBBA, but then we'll have a showing agreement that's specific to whatever community. So say you know that they like one community and there may be 3 or 4 builders in there. You can make it specific to that community that you could get paid whatever those builder incentives are in there. So if they're offering a bonus, if it's 3% and a $2,000 bonus, we have to capture that, or technically we can't get paid that. So the seller can't pay us more at closing than what is in our showing agreement or EBBA. So just keep in mind that you have to always capture that. You can do it on a modification document, or you could keep it as 2 separate documents. Sam and I like to use this one specific for new builds, and then so we still have our other EBBA in effect if we end up going to pre-build. So all that to say, just keep in mind that when those documents change, it has to be modified at some, or when your commissions change, it has to be documented. And then we want to make sure you're submitting your initial agreements to admin. And now if you end up with a modification when you're under contract, you don't have to resubmit this form. You'll just include it with your new deal docs when you get to that point. So are there any questions about touring agreements? One thing to note is keep in mind, even if you're doing virtual tours, live virtual tours, you still have to have them sign some form of showing agreement. If you are touring the property on their behalf and they're not live on video with you, you don't. But the sooner you have them sign it, solidifies your working relationship with them. So it's always a good idea to get it, even if you're just going to be emailing them videos and videos and photos. So yesterday, I hope all of you saw my quick video that I posted in WhatsApp talking about appraisal gaps and conversation starters to have with the listing agent and with your buyer if you come across a property that you think is overpriced. If you have more questions on that, we can certainly dive into that individually, or you can ask towards the end, whatever it is. But this is my opportunity to remind you guys that view working with the listing agent as a partnership. You both have the same goal in mind, which is to get this house sold. Your buyer wants it, the seller wants it sold. That's our goal. So the sooner you're talking to them about what the seller's needs are and letting them know what your buyer's needs are, the easier it's going to be to negotiate. Now, if you have a listing agent who is just really difficult, don't stress. When I get someone super difficult, I rely on texting and emailing. So what I'm communicating to them is very specific. It's there in black and white, and it can't be misconstrued because the listing agent's a jerk and has an attitude about everything. Usually the listing agent doesn't, but we all do come across those at some point. So when you have someone who is harder to deal with, just make sure you're putting everything in writing so that it's very clear what you're trying to communicate. And if you ever need help drafting or troubleshooting how to navigate a tricky conversation, whether it's with the listing agent or the lender or the buyer, that's what I'm here for. So once you've started your showings, you got the EBBA, keep in mind that at first showing is where you're going to be getting to know your buyer. You're going to ask them what their timeline is, ask them what their financial situation is. Hey, have you gotten pre-approved already? Oh, you haven't? That truly is the first step. We don't want to fall in love with a house and then it be swept out from underneath us because we're going back and forth with the lender. So that truly is the first step. So whatever it might be, that first showing, you're wanting to get a better idea of what their needs are. And then that's going to help you figure out how much time you're going to need to dedicate to them right now. Are they someone who I need to put on a drip campaign, basically to get an email from me once a month, once a week, because they're not going to be ready for another year? Or are they someone who needs to be in a house in the next 45 days? So think of those first showing appointments as your opportunity to lay the groundwork for, okay, what is our game plan in order to meet your specific needs? One thing when you're working on your offers, so some of you have written a couple offers already. Keep in mind that your first 3 offers, we need you sending to me for reviews, for writing it with you, going over it prior to submitting your new deals. So we don't want you to feel like you're out there on your own, working rogue as an independent agent. You and I can work our way through it together. And then that way we know that you're comfortable, confident. And once you've moved beyond those 3 deals, if you're needing help, most certainly send it to me. A lot of times you may, by that point, it may be a simple question and then you send me docs for a review and I may email you back some edits. It may not be as involved as you and I doing a Google Meet to go over the deal. But keep that in mind. Your first 3 deals, plan on working closely with me. And then beyond that, I am here as you need me, whether it's your 5th deal or your 15th deal. Because we know every property, every scenario ends up looking a little different. There's always something new. So we don't expect you guys to be able to tackle all of that on your own. So I mentioned doing a CMA, but keep in mind as a buyer's agent, I don't want you stressing, pulling your hair out, looking for comps. Now, and this is what my video yesterday was on, is if you think a property is way overpriced, then we're going to have to spend a little more time on it. If all the sales in the area are, within $5,000 or $10,000 of the listing price, it's probably not that big of a deal. If everything in the area is $75,000 less than what your seller's wanting and what your buyer's willing to pay, then that's probably going to be an important conversation to have with the listing agent that, hey, I just can't find any comps for this. But typical properties, you're not going to have to spend too much time on this. So you're going to, right, reminder again, communicate with the listing agent. You want to know your buyer's financial position. You need to make sure you have all the property disclosures. Now, granted, that's going to be dependent on how much information the listing agent put out there. We do have lists in the Google Drive of what required documents are needed, but you're going to be working through gathering all of your information. And then just a caveat that we want you shooting for a 10-day inspection window. Anything less than that can really be rushed depending on what the needs are. So we always aim for 10 days. 7 days is totally doable. If some reason you're negotiating less than that, touch base with me and we'll make sure that it's not going to be a problem. Okay, so I'm going to jump ahead to when you're writing your offers. This is a detailed list of things to remember, which is also in the Google Drive and with all of the document examples. But this is where I was talking about that for your first 3 deals at least, make sure you're sending all of your documents to me. And I'm going to need all the information about the deal as well. If you just send the contract, but it's in a 55 and up, it has an HOA, it's a lead-based paint, yada, yada, I need to see everything or we might miss something that's crucial. So just keep in mind that when we're working on this, we need all the documents. Then once you and I get through negotiations, we get your docs done and you are fully executed, I'm going to take another look and then you're going to submit it to admin using our Google Form New Deal. I recommend bookmarking all of these. They're also in
Joseph Aponte.
They're also in even agents who have been with us forever still call me for help or to troubleshoot or just pick my brain. So that is one of the great things about our team structure is that you are never alone. Okay, I lost my train of thought. What were we discussing? Oh, so if you need to find all of the Google Form links, go to the main agent resources folder and there's a Fortify Google Forms just sheet in here with all those links. I have a Google form that I would prefer you guys to use. I've gone back and forth on if I was going to do away with it or not. There's a lot of really good information in here that if I don't know, we might miss something about your deal. So please do, when time allows, use the Google form to submit all of your deal information to me because it's going to be a much more thorough review. If you text me at 7 o'clock on Tuesday and say, hey, I need to write an offer tonight, chances are something's going to slip through the cracks. I'm going to do my best to help you that night. But the more prepared we are in advance, it's going to be a smoother process. And so when you're first working on your deals, just keep that in mind too. If your buyer says, okay, I want to write an offer, your response would be, okay, great, I'll get those docs over to you. So say it's, Wednesday afternoon, you may say, okay, great, I'm going to work on all of that and I'll have it over to you tomorrow. Versus, okay, great, I'm going to have that to you in a couple hours. Well, that's going to be really difficult for you and I to make sure we have everything, all of our needs met and have communicated on it. So just keep that in mind when you're structuring your workload and communicating with the buyer so they know what to expect. Now, if it is a multiple offer scenario, there is a rush for some reason, those scenarios happen. The quicker you loop me in and give me the heads up that you're working on something, the easier it is for me to make sure that I can have enough time to indeed help you later that day. So just keep that in mind. All right, so back to got out of it. haven't gone through this checklist with you guys in a while, but I created this simply for you, especially the newer agents, because it is step by step. So feel free to use this, put it on your tablet, print it out. But it truly is step by step down to all of the little details. So once you and I have worked through it, you're fully executed, I'll tell you, okay, great, submit your new deal. Keep in mind, this is happening within those first 24 hours of us being executed, because once you submit the new deal, I'm going to show you what it looks like if I can find one quickly. When admin gets it, they will send out an email that looks like, let me find it in my email chain. This might have been not a great one. Okay, it'll look like this. They send it to you, they send it to the other agent involved, they send it to title, and then if there's a lender, they also copy the lender. So you're not having to send those executed documents back out to everybody. All you have to do, once we know that they are fully complete and ready to go, you submit your new deal, then admin takes all of those docs, they send them to everybody who's going to be working on the file to get them started. That triggers title to contact the buyer to give them escrow instructions. It triggers the lender to start working on their end, because they need every bit of those 30 days typically to get everything done. If you wait, and if it's day 3 or 4 past execution and then you send this, it's going to cause problems. So just keep that in mind, that by doing the new deal early on, it's going to save you work that, you know, admin will take off your plate otherwise. If there's documents missing, Kim puts it in there. So you as the buyer's agent knows, but then the listing agent will see this and say, oh crap, I never sent them those docs. At the end of the day, it's on us as the agent to make sure we have everything, to make sure it goes smooth. Kim will request docs for us a handful of times, but she helps, 60 of us manage files behind the scenes. So at the end of the day, keep in mind, it's your responsibility as the agent to make sure we get everything. Because once we do have everything, Kim will then take it all, put it in command. She'll submit it for compliance with Keller Williams. You never have to touch that side of things. And then they will get your disbursement agreement. And the sooner you get everything executed to them, the sooner they can get your DA, and the more likely it is that you can get paid at the table that day. So when you're congratulating your buyer for, finding this home, you're thanking them for working with you, you can walk away with the check that day. Versus if we don't have everything, we can't get compliance, we don't get the DA ahead of time, it may be a week or 2 post-closing before you can get paid. So it includes all the pertinent information, execution dates, when the deposit's due. Note this one, 3 business days from receiving wiring instructions. When you look at our contract examples, you'll see that I include that in the additional terms, and I want all of you guys writing your contracts that way, because it gives us that buffer of when we're dealing with a crappy insurance or their system just didn't work. Maybe they didn't get it out quickly. Well, then it's not on the buyer. The buyer's not outside of their contract terms because they didn't get it in within the first 3 days of execution. We built in a buffer. So just keep that in mind. Inspection period, it lets everyone know, so we're all on the same page, and then lets everybody know what closing date we're shooting for. And then there is a reminder to copy Alicia and Kim on all of the communications. Because then as we move forward, if there is an addendum or a price change or whatever it is, they need that information to put it into command for us to update our compliance folder and to get those DAs updated. All right, so back to, I'm going to close that. Back to our steps. So you submit the new deal. That triggers Kim and Alicia to start working. That triggers title and the lender. And then what you're going to be doing is scheduling your inspection, reminding your buyer about escrow. I recommend adding all of your contract deadlines to your calendar. I have within my calendar, I have a coded calendar that says contract dates. So at a glance, if I get a call on something and I'm saying, they're telling me that the appraisal is going to be delayed, I'm able to pull it up and say, oh, that's not going to work. Or if they're saying, the termite guy got sick and couldn't go today, he wants to reschedule for next Monday. Well, I'm going to be able to glance easily, because after a while, once you have so many deals or even multiple, you don't want to just rely on your memory to, okay, whether or not that you're going to remember your inspection timeline. So I do recommend creating a contract deadline calendar for yourself. One nice thing also, you will see emails from Kim as your inspection period end date is coming up, as your closing date is coming up. She will email you reminders. Hey, did you get your inspection release signed? Did you get your walkthrough waiver signed? Be aware of these dates. So we do have safety nets because we know there's a lot of moving pieces, but the more organized you are when you're first starting out, the easier it will be to get a good system in place. Keep in mind, always a caveat when you're talking to your buyer about what to expect, that if they want to go to inspections, you have to be there. They cannot be there on their own. Most reports will also be back within 24 hours. And then let the buyer know that the inspector will contact them directly for payment. I do have in our buyer guide an outline of what typical inspection costs are. So it's really good to discuss with your buyer when you're walking through your showings, when they say, okay, I want to make an offer, what's next? And you're letting them know what to expect, what we're going to have to do now and what to expect in the next week or two. And so they, feel prepared as they're walking through the process. I will show you that. I know a handful of you have already seen it. So this buyer guide is great. Oh, my computer, catch up. It's great for your buyer, but it's also good for us as an agent to help have a good guide for those milestones.
Caller.
As we're working through those milestones and what we're going to need to do and what we need to talk to them about. Some Wednesdays we go more in depth about how we navigate those conversations with a buyer and what we specifically want to discuss. Today I kind of wanted to give you guys a refresher on just the start to finish of the process. And then hopefully I can get through this. And if whatever questions you have about a specific phase of it, we'll have time for questions. Okay. So you're going to be working on your inspections. One thing I recommend too is we want to get an insurance quote early. That way you have someone to bounce off the 4-point report findings and you can get feedback on that. So you can ask if there's something needed. It's a lot easier to say, hey, insurance is requiring this to close versus, hey, this is a buyer preference. Will the seller fix that? So I always recommend from the very beginning getting some insurance quotes. Another email that will go out from Kim is an email copying you, the buyer, and right now it's to Assured Partners saying, hey, here's a buyer, this is property address, can you send some quotes? So that's usually helpful too. So just keep that in mind that you can reach out to them, or if you have a insurance agent that you really trust and enjoy working with, that's a great relationship to have, and they'll appreciate repeat business and they tend to want to send you business. So that's always a really good relationship to have. So you can always send quotes outside of that direct, or, requests for it directly. Okay, you're also going to want to remind your buyers that once we're under contract, there's some KW disclosures that will come from admin. So just keep in mind, you're going to get a lot of emails from title, from the lender, from Fortify admin. You will need to sign some additional documents once we're under contract. As long as they are given the heads up, it's usually not a big deal and they know to expect it. Otherwise, they may start getting nervous or overwhelmed and they're not sure what's important and what's not. So once we are through the inspection period, or once we are through those first 48 hours, you've scheduled your appointments, you've coordinated everything, you got your new deal in, that's where you can take a beat and go work with some other clients, hopefully work up on your follow-ups. But as you're going through your inspection, at any time, you can give me a call. I can review your inspection reports with you. When I have those conversations with the buyer, I want to prepare them that, keep in mind, the inspection report is going to outline everything from big issues to little issues. So it's more of a honey-do list of the home. We know this house was built in 1985, so it's not going to be a turnkey new construction build pristine report. It's going to have some normal maintenance, but what we're looking for are the big things: plumbing, electrical, roof, issues that we couldn't see when we went through the walkthrough. That way, when your buyer sees that report, they don't panic when it's a 50-page report and there's this long list of little items. We're going to want to help them keep in mind that the big goal is anything that's going to be real costly or a safety concern or affect our ability to get insurance or appraisal. So as you're navigating your inspection period, just be aware of your timelines. So say you have a 10-day inspection window. Let's say you go under contract today. Today's day 0. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So your inspection period would end on the 30th, March 30th. If for some reason it lands on a holiday, or it is calendar days when you're counting it. I get this question all the time. Inspection periods are calendar days. However, they can't fall on a weekend or holiday. So if day 10 is technically the 5th, it would roll over. As long as banks and title companies are open, I don't know if they're open. Easter Monday may be a national holiday. So if title company and banks are closed, then it would roll over to the 7th. If it landed on Saturday, it would roll over to the following Monday. It rolls over to the following business day. So just keep that in mind with your inspection windows. One thing we do after inspection, so depending on what requests we're needing, I'm going to our document examples. We have an inspection contingency release document. This is a Fortify specific document we use. So if we're asking for repairs that it's not anything that the lender is going to need to be aware of, like a new roof, we're going to put it in this. Or if your inspection report is flawless, you're going to have your buyer sign this, basically acknowledging, hey, we are good to go. We are releasing our inspection contingency. It is our decision to move forward. That is the CYA for you. We never want them to say, oh, well, we didn't know our inspection period ended, or we didn't know that we no longer had the chance to ask about the broken door in the master bedroom, because we want to make sure they understand that if they have concerns, it has to be dealt with during that inspection period. So this is a good CYA document that we use. So whether we're asking for repairs, especially we don't want it on an addendum because we don't want the lender to see it necessarily. If it's between the buyer and the seller, we're going to use this. And this is a PDF that you upload into DocuSign or Transaction Desk. If, say you work through inspections and you end up coming up with a purchase price or a purchase price change or a credit or whatever it might be, then if it's a dollar amount changing, then you will have to do an addendum because the lender and title and everyone needs to see that. But it's going to be as simple as buyer and seller, or seller will provide a $5,000 credit towards buyer's closing costs and prepaids. We don't acknowledge in the lender documents that it's for one specific purpose or another. All that they can see is that it's being attributed towards a credit towards the buyer. So if they would have been paying $8,000 out of pocket at closing for their closing expenses, but then there's repairs they need to do, they get that $5,000. Now they're saving $5,000 and only paying $3,000 at closing. So they save money to use post-closing. So keep that in mind. If it's a credit or a price change or a new roof that we know is going to be required in order to appraise, we'll do an addendum. All right. And on your checklist, as we move forward after inspection, we get to appraisal. If appraisal comes in low, call me. Call me every time. If you end up having issues, you can't come to terms during inspection, call me. If you can't get me, call one of the team leads. Call Sam, Matt, or Angel, because we don't want you guys canceling deals that potentially could have been saved simply because you haven't used a certain trick or tactic or, combination of negotiating elements. So before you cancel, when you hit a hiccup during your contract to close process, call us. We are here to help you navigate it. And there's times where, the only option may be that, okay, we have to cancel. This truly was unknown. There's no way around it. And it happens. But my goal for you guys is, if you're talking to the buyer, the listing agent, and the lender before you ever write that offer, to truly find out what the loan needs are, what houses are going to fit the buyer needs and the loan needs, what the listing agent says, what the seller's going to be okay with. You're going to identify all of the potential problems ahead of time, and it's going to help you write a stronger offer, and it's going to help you identify, okay, this may not be the house for us. We need to move on, versus going under on a house that we don't expect to appraise. We don't expect to pass the FHA inspection, yada, yada. So I don't want us just writing offers, throwing it out there and crossing our fingers and toes. If we're writing an offer, I want it to be that we confidently know that this is a good, it makes sense for our buyer and it's going to work, because there's nothing worse than getting a few weeks into a contract and your buyer's super upset. Usually they're going to be upset with you because you didn't tell them that all the peeling paint in this house was going to be an appraisal issue, and they can't afford to pay the reappraisal for the reappraisal inspection. So just, there's a lot of moving parts, but that's why it's great that we have the team that we can troubleshoot and discuss it. And then that's why I say too, when you first call me, you're working on a new deal. Ideally, you're going to submit that Google form with all of the answers to my questions. I'm going to want to know what's your buyer's max purchase pre-approval price, but what's their max budget? What price did the house start at versus what it's priced at right now? How many days on market? I have a lot of questions that will help us navigate that. Because again, we don't want to waste a few weeks under contract or buyer pay for inspection and then it all fall apart because of appraisal when we could have identified that early on. So just keep that in mind. But again, so if something comes up, there's a major leak or water damage, nobody saw it, the unexpected things do happen. We're also here to help you navigate that as well. So then you're going to work through that. If there are repairs that are happening, there can be a lot of back and forth between getting pictures of the repairs, making sure the repairs are done, getting that over to, it might be you need the inspector to update the contract, or it may be the WDO. You may be sending them. So just today, I got back a termite wood destroying organism report that it's a VA loan. So the lender required it. The original one said there was some damaged wood. We now have the damaged wood fixed. I sent them the picture. They sent me a clean report. So now I have to turn around and send the report to the lender. So there can be a lot of back and forth. You just don't want to let those things slip through the cracks. So then keep in mind, you as the realtor, you're going to want to keep your eye on everything that, yes, okay, the seller has made all of their repairs. When you go for that final walkthrough, we usually schedule it a day or two before at the most. Sometimes it may be that morning. If I had a property that had a lot of repairs done, I'm going to bring that list with me and I'm going to walk through and make sure it's all done. I'm visually going to inspect that myself. Whether or not the buyer can go themselves, 9 times out of 10 the buyer can, but sometimes you may have someone closing and they're moving from out of state and they're not physically there. Always do the final walkthrough. And we have a final walkthrough waiver, just like when we're releasing, they're doing an inspection contingency release. We have a final walkthrough waiver that this is a document that most brokerages don't use. But as Fortify, we've learned that this is another really good CYA for us. And I'm trying to think of where it is. So we use this walkthrough, either inspection, reinspection, but it's a waiver saying the buyer is satisfied. So then 3 months down the road, they can't call and say that they're unhappy with X, Y, and Z. They acknowledge that they were ready to close. They move forward. Or it may be that we went there and the seller didn't fix it. But the buyer's in a hurry and they want to close anyway. Well, we're going to document that, whatever it might be. So keep that in mind. And when you get that email from Kim, she'll send you a link to the walkthrough waiver too, as a reminder. And then, post closing, some you may not be buying a gift for everybody, but definitely you want to keep in mind sending your thank yous. You want to ask for referrals. You're going to want to, for all of your post-closing clients, I would utilize Follow Up Boss to put them on campaigns to get home anniversary emails, homestead reminders. Keep in mind that just because they're closed, it doesn't mean that you'll never see them again or work with them again, and that they are a really great resource. One thing about our team is that we have the paid leads. So we all have that consistent business, but we want you guys to take that Zillow lead, work it, get your paycheck, but then that's a relationship that you have for the rest of your career to nurture. And that one paid referral lead could turn into 3 referrals of their sphere that you don't pay any fees on, that there's no, fee at closing. So just keep that in mind, that whether you're really new to your real estate career or you're 10 years in, if you're not doing the follow-up to maintain those relationships, it's a lot of lost opportunity. So I wanted to highlight just step from beginning to finish, make sure we are remembering how the process works with admin, with Fortify, how they help us, how I'm here to help you and then what your responsibilities are. It's a lot of moving pieces, but then also, as we cycle through, every week it changes a little what we discuss, but I'm trying to think if there was anything else I really wanted you to see today. I think that's in a nutshell, because I like you guys to have the reminder of start to finish what it looks like. Now, of course, if it's a listing, it's slightly different. There's a listing Google form instead of your contract Google form. And we have steps for working. Let me get out of here. Just like we have our working with buyers folder, we have a working with sellers folder. And so in a couple weeks, we'll be circling back to diving more into listings, seller specific stuff. But for the most part, you're going to be working as a buyer's agent. But just keep that in mind. If you do get a listing lead, give me a call. Don't panic. But we have resources for you there too. One cool thing is Haley has been working on getting a lot of our trainings and videos in YouTube. So that may be an easier way for you to navigate some of it. But then just keep in mind, I'll always be maintaining this for you as well. Okay. We have a few minutes left. So what questions do you guys have?
I don't think I have any. You pretty much answered everything in your presentation for me.
Well, thank you, Dee.
You're welcome.
Alberto, how's it going?
Hi, Kathleen. How are you?
I'm good.
Question, what is the process if it's a rental? It's the same process?
Yeah. So with a rental, I don't recommend, unless there are scenarios where you may want to represent a tenant, but we're not in the tenant agent business. There's no money in it. So don't spend a lot of time helping people find rentals. I would gear them to either, hey, let's see if you could get pre-approved, see if you can flip them to a buyer. But if you are a rental listing, if you're doing a lease listing, I do have examples I think I have examples in here. Yep. So it's pretty simple. It's your lease agreement, and then you'll submit your new listing Google form. If you have questions, I'm happy to help you navigate it. But you submit your new listing Google form, you answer the questions, you tell them it's a lease somewhere in here, and landlord lease listing. And then the only difference is the team will pay for your sales listing photography, but for rentals, we usually just do that ourselves. But it's pretty simple that, you do your listing agreement, you submit the new listing, you put it in MLS the way you would another property. Does that answer your question, or were you looking for something more specific?
I barely do rentals, and doesn't make any sense financially speaking. But sometimes in Zillow, it happens, right? People click a rental, and then you ended up doing a rental as
Yeah. So if they come
an
in as
agent, right?
So if
I just
they
want to know the process, how to record what's going on with that rental.
Yeah, so if they call in as a renter, the first thing you're going to do is determine if there's any way that they could buy. And that conversation could be, have you ever considered buying? If your rental budget is $2,900 a month, maybe you would be better off putting that into an investment. And you can try to get them over to a lender and see if that's something that could work for them. But if they're truly only wanting to rent a property, you can say, best of luck. I don't handle tenant placement. if you do, if it's someone you have a relationship with, if they're buying in 6 months and they just need something now, if there's a reason you are choosing to be more involved with a tenant placement, you can contact the listing agent and send them the referral, and you may get $100 or $200. But then it's just a benefit of maintaining that relationship. We're not in it for the money. It's just an element of helping that client through whatever process they are with their real estate needs. But yes, if you get a call and it is very clear that there's no way they could ever be a buyer in Follow Up Boss, you can trash it, and in the notes you put not a buyer lead, can't qualify for financing, only interested in renting. And then it's not going to hurt you that you're not maintaining that contact. So say this lady, we find out she can only be a renter. She's never going to be able to buy. You, in your stage, you can trash it. And then in the notes, you would put not a buyer, bad lead. I don't want to reset his.
Okay, thank you for that, because that was my next question, my concern. If there's a rental and I can refer it, get referral fee, and then delete it from my
Mm-hmm.
CRM. Okay.
Mm-hmm. And now it may be that, let me get back to Follow Up Boss. It may be that you want to take anyone who you get as rental and you tag them as renter only, but you may put them on in time. You may build out action plans that send automatic emails throughout the weeks and months and years for you on your behalf. Drip campaigns that every 6 months you email them saying, hey, have you considered buying yet? Or, hey, are you getting closer to being able to buy? You can use those as long-term connections and relationships to build. But as far as it goes, we don't expect you to represent them as a tenant.
Okay, got it. Thank you for the clarification.
What other questions do we have? Some weeks I feel like I end up harping on the same ideas, but hopefully it's helpful reminders, because there's so many moving pieces that it's easy to get bogged down with different phases of the steps. So you can always reach out to me. We can wrap up for the day if nobody else has any other questions, but keep in mind that if you're facing a hurdle or you get asked something you're not sure of, just say, hey, let me touch base with my team and I'll get back to you, and I am more than happy to help.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Definitely resonated a lot. Got a lot of good information today.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad it was helpful, and I hope it gave you a good snapshot of how our process works with our admin and how, our Fortify systems, but you'll get more familiar with it as the weeks go on.
Yeah, applying it and actually doing the tasks. Question though is, when will this start showing up in my Google Drive? Should it already be there?
Yeah, so in your welcome email, I sent you a link to it. So you should be able to go in and access it now. I would recommend starring it and saving it. I recommend everybody to save it as a bookmark, but then you can.
Oh no.
She'll be back, maybe. See,
There
I
she
told
is.
you she'd be back. We can't hear you. You have no sound.
I kicked myself out. Sorry, guys.
Oh no.
It's okay. I told him you'd be back.
Dee knows I won't intentionally leave you hanging, right? Thank you for your faith in me, Dee. Okay, so in your
Always.
Google Drive, yeah, I recommend starring it. So then if you go into your drive, you can easily find it. But say agent resources, I think you can do it here. Yeah, if you click that drop down and click organize, mine's already starred, but it'll give you the option to star it. So then regardless how your Google Drive sorts things, you can always
Go to
directly
the
here,
starred.
go directly to it.
Okay.
But again, I utilize my bookmark tabs for everything. So that's one thing that I do recommend you guys doing. And I always recommend bookmark the Google Forms. That way, you know, it's when you get to the point of needing it, it's easy to find. I do send them out. I include a Friday recap email, and I try to include all the links in that. And they, of course, are in the main Google Drive in this, so we have them all over the place. But of course, when it comes time to needing them, it can be hectic. So I do recommend going ahead and bookmarking those as well. What other questions do we have? And Justice, I'm happy to stay on for a few minutes if there's anything specific. I know you just joined us, so if you want to, you know, stay on for a few minutes, I'm more than happy to stay on and chat.
Okay, thank you. I just found everything in the drive.
Awesome.
But I do have to call one of my lenders right now before his meeting at 11:30. So I might message you and set something up if I have any other questions, but right
fine.
now I think I'm okay.
Perfect. All right. Well, does anyone else have any questions for me before we hop off for the day?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. Well, I hope y'all have a good weekend. One reminder, and I'm sure you're going to see this in the WhatsApp too, but since I have you guys, I'm going to remind you, when you're doing open houses, they are now enforcing in our area that if you don't pick your signs up, they can fine us and they will throw our signs away. So don't leave your open house signs out.
That's crazy. That's money. Why are you leaving your signs out?
Well, yeah, some people, I think it's they're wanting to clean up all of the junk like advertisement signs.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, you see some people, they'll put 20 open house signs out and then
Mhm.
2 days later they don't go back and pick them up. So just remember, if you forget signs out over the weekend, they're
They're
gonna
gonna be
get
gone.
Yep.
All right. Thank you.
All right, y'all have a good day.
Yeah, you too. Bye.